staged it! You staged it! Staged it! You staged it! Please don't be child abuser! Where's Jimmy Savile? Where's Jimmy Savile? You staged this! You're a child abuser! You child abuser! You child abuser! Get back!
1 minute ago, Britain was jolted by a political earthquake. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has been taken into custody directly from court, a moment that has stunned the nation and sent shockwaves through Westminster. You're watching BritBuzz News, and tonight, we bring you the full picture behind this extraordinary development. The arrest unfolded in a courtroom already tense with anticipation. Starmer, a man who has dominated Britain's political landscape in recent years, was led away by law enforcement officials before a room of stunned observers. What began as a routine legal proceeding erupted into chaos the moment officers moved in. Eyewitnesses described the scene as both swift and surreal. Moments earlier, the Prime Minister had been addressing the court. Then, without warning, he was surrounded and escorted out under arrest. Security teams acted with precision, pushing back the press and public as officers cleared a secure path. Flashbulbs lit the chamber. Reporters scrambled to document what was quickly becoming one of the most defining moments in recent British history. Outside, confusion turned to uproar. Crowds surged as word spread that the Prime Minister himself had been detained. Journalists on the ground broadcast the images live, Starmer appearing composed, though visibly tense, as he was placed into custody. Within seconds, the story dominated national headlines and spread across international networks from Washington to Brussels. So far, police have released only a brief statement confirming that the arrest was made under lawful authority. No further details have been provided. That silence has only deepened public uncertainty and raised critical questions. What charges, if any, is the Prime Minister facing? And what does this mean for the government's immediate future? The suddenness of the event magnified its political impact. There had been murmurs for weeks about potential legal challenges and growing internal pressure within labor ranks, but few, if any, foresaw an arrest carried out so publicly and with such immediacy. It was an unplanned, unscripted moment that will now dominate every conversation in Westminster. Outside the courthouse, the nation's divide was on full display. Supporters called the arrest a political ambush, while critics hailed it as a victory for accountability, proof that even the highest office is not beyond the reach of the law. Police reinforcements arrived quickly as tensions flared and barricades went up to contain the swelling crowds. That image, a sitting Prime Minister being escorted from court in handcuffs, will be replayed for years to come. It has already reshaped Britain's political narrative overnight. A day that began as a standard court appearance has ended as one of the most dramatic chapters in modern UK politics. To understand the gravity of this moment, we must look at what brought Starmer to court in the first place. For weeks, speculation had been mounting over ongoing investigations linked to his leadership and the internal operations of his government. Once celebrated for his rise from barrister to Labour leader and eventually Prime Minister, Starmer has faced growing scrutiny over allegations tied to political conduct and the use of authority within his administration. His background as a respected former director of public prosecutions adds a deep layer of irony. For years, he stood as a symbol of justice and rule of law. Now he finds himself on the opposite side of that equation, the subject of legal scrutiny rather than its enforcer. Reports suggest that inquiries into procedural failures and potential misuse of power have been quietly gathering pace behind closed doors. Though no official details have been confirmed, the very fact that a sitting Prime Minister stood before a court has triggered fierce national debate. Is this a triumph of British accountability, or a moment where politics and law have fatally collided? In recent months, Starmer's government has been under mounting strain, economic turbulence, public frustration over rising living costs, and persistent doubts about whether his leadership could deliver meaningful change. His critics within Parliament have seized every opportunity to challenge his authority, while allies have urged restraint, arguing that he remains the target of orchestrated political pressure. That tension made today's courtroom appearance a moment of extraordinary stakes. Starmer entered as Prime Minister, but tonight, his position and his legacy hang in the balance. Few expected his legal challenges to culminate in an arrest of this magnitude. Yet that is precisely what has happened. This evening, as the nation watches and waits for answers, one thing is clear. Britain has entered uncharted territory. The arrest of a sitting prime minister is more than a legal proceeding. It is a defining test for the country's political institutions and for public faith in the rule of law. When Keir Starmer entered the courtroom, observers noted his trademark composure. His opening remarks emphasized fairness, transparency, and respect for due process. But beneath the calm exterior, sources close to the proceedings reported growing unease. There were murmurs of sealed documents, late-night consultations, and sudden shifts in legal strategy. The atmosphere was heavy with uncertainty, and when the arrest finally came, it felt both shocking and, in hindsight, almost inevitable. The culmination of weeks of tension that had been building quietly behind the scenes. For ordinary citizens, the moment was as confusing as it was historic. Some saw Starmer's appearance in court as a powerful statement of accountability, evidence that even the highest office in the land is not beyond the reach of justice. Others dismissed it as political theater, a distraction from the deeper issues facing the country. Online, the debate raged, social media platforms filled with speculation, accusations, and partisan fervor. What began as a legal matter quickly became a mirror of the nation's divisions, exposing yet again how polarized British politics has become. Internationally, the response was swift. Allies and adversaries alike watched closely as news broke that a sitting British Prime Minister had been arrested. To some, it signaled weakness at a time when the United Kingdom seeks to project global stability. To others, it was a powerful symbol of democratic strength, proof that no leader, however powerful, is immune from scrutiny. Either way, the images from London resonated far beyond British shores. By the time Starmer was escorted from the courtroom, the meaning of the moment was unmistakable. This was not just about one man, one case, or one decision. It was the climax of years of political strain, of questions surrounding integrity, power, and accountability. What unfolded today was not an isolated incident. It was the eruption of a story that had been gathering pressure for months, perhaps even years. Within minutes, news of the arrest ricocheted through Parliament like a political earthquake. Supporters of the Prime Minister expressed disbelief and anger, calling the move a politically motivated attack designed to destabilize the government. The opposition seized the moment, demanding transparency and clarity over the charges. The Commons was alive with speculation, confrontation, and disbelief as MPs scrambled to respond in real time. Across the media, coverage turned wall to wall. Television networks broke into live programming, with reporters stationed outside the courthouse delivering constant updates. Headlines blazed across screens. Prime Minister arrested in courtroom drama. Analysts filled the airwaves, weighing the implications legal, constitutional, and political. Was this a triumph of accountability, or a crisis that could shake public confidence in Britain's leadership? Opinions differed sharply. Public reaction was immediate and deeply divided. Outside the courthouse, supporters and protesters clashed in chants and arguments. Online, hashtags such as Keir Starmer arrest and UK breaking news dominated trending lists. Memes, outrage, and theories spread at lightning speed. To some, the arrest represented a victory for justice. To others, it was a dangerous precedent, a moment when political power and the law became dangerously intertwined. In homes, workplaces, and schools across the country, the same question was being asked: how could a sitting prime minister end up in handcuffs? For many, it felt like living through history, a moment that would be recounted for generations. Around the world, the reaction was just as intense. International news outlets from Washington to Berlin and Tokyo led with the story. Some foreign commentators called it a damaging moment for Britain's global standing. Others praised the UK for upholding legal principles without fear or favor. Governments abroad issued cautious statements, signaling that they were watching events in London closely. Political analysts here at home warned that the fallout could be seismic. Within Labour, Starmer's arrest triggered immediate questions over leadership and succession. Who would step in if the Prime Minister were unable to continue? For the opposition, the situation presented both opportunity and danger, a chance to challenge the government's credibility, but also a risk of backlash if the arrest later proves unfounded or politically charged. Tonight, Britain finds itself at a crossroads, facing not only a constitutional test but a moral one. The arrest of a sitting Prime Minister has reshaped the political landscape in a single afternoon, leaving a country divided, uncertain, and waiting for answers.